OK. So it went awful, by the way. So this talk is basically a bit about moving fast and also about keeping your code quality. But I'm going to start with a spoiler, because I know that everybody loves spoilers. This talk is not about faster development, so I'm not going to teach you any new ideas or any new tools on what to use. This is not going to be like a speed reading course on how to develop. It is basically going to be a talk about quality. And the premise of this talk is that productivity is a byproduct of quality. And I'll explore this further in more detail, but first I want to give a small warning. Unfortunately, this talk, probably people that work by themselves are not going to get much value from this talk. I hope like some stuff is useful, but in general, it's not going to be really useful for people that work by themselves. This talk is also basically my experience as a developer. This is what has worked with my background. These are not rules by any means. These are just like experiences, what I've experienced and what I think works. So who am I? So as they already explained, I'm Francisco. That's my website. If you want to see the slides of the talk, they're already there. And that's my Twitter handle. So if you want to just connect and talk afterwards, just please do. I'm from Chile, from Santiago. I don't know if anybody here has been there. But they told me yesterday that I was like the first South American speaker at UIKonf, so I'm very proud about that. And I work at a company that's called ASYNC. In ASYNC, which is a Canadian company that is based on Vancouver, but we actually also have an office in Santiago. We're currently around like 60 people working in the company, and the iOS team fluctuates around 5 to 10 iOS developers. We have like more interns in the summer, and they leave and stuff like that. So we usually have around 5 and 10. And what we specialize at is that we do a lot of small experiments internally. So we have like ideas that come from inside of the company, and we just like create all of these different prototypes to like test those ideas and see if they work. If they work, like we put more resources into that. If they don't, we just like kill them immediately. So we like to call ourselves like a startup that builds startups, and we've had like some success, and obviously most of them just like get killed immediately after a month. So when you do like all of these different types of apps, you need to try to move as fast as possible and get like as much value as possible in the shortest amount of time. So I said that this talk is going to be about quality, and I said that productivity is a byproduct of quality. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you have a manager, let's call him Mark. And the story goes like this. So this guy, Mark, goes there on Monday morning, and he asks you like, hey, I need to like build all of these features for Friday. And you know that those features are not possible to make for Friday. Maybe you did like an estimation last week, and he didn't just like disregard the whole estimation. Or maybe you even didn't do an estimation, and this is just like coming directly from a business reality. So one option would be to work faster. That means, for example, don't wait for the CI to finish, or don't even do pull requests, because then you have to wait for somebody else to review your code, and that takes time. Don't even think about the design that you're going to implement before you implement it, but this obviously reduces the quality of the product. Another option would be just work longer. So instead of like working 40 hours, just like stay until like 8 p.m. every day, work like 60-hour week or something. And this is obviously going to affect the quality of your life, which, if you keep doing it on a daily basis or like a week basis, is going to turn into burnout, which, as we all know, also reduces the quality of the work that you're producing. And the third option would be buying a DeLorean, going back in time, and having more time to implement it. And one funny thing is that I've never heard a developer say something like this. Like, we are really not proud about the amount of lines of code that we implement. We're really proud about the quality of the code that we implement. So that's why you can say something like, oh, this code is beautiful, or like, this code is elegant, right? Because you're proud of the quality, not the quantity. It doesn't matter if you wrote like 10,000 lines of code for something. But if you wrote like a really simple, beautiful snippet, you're probably going to share it. And less quality in your products creates more production bugs. Because as we said, if you don't take any time to design, then like you're probably going to create more bugs that are going to be caught in production time and not when you're designing it or implementing it. And more bugs in production obviously amounts to less productivity. So there's actually a really interesting study by IBM where you can see that if you catch a bug in design time, it takes actually 100 times less effort to fix it than if you catch it when it's in production. So that's 100 times less time to implement some other things. And as we all know, if you don't design your code, if you don't think about it before you start implementing it, you're probably going to get spaghetti code. And that means that it's going to take more time in the future to add more code on top of that. And obviously, more time implementing each feature amounts to less productivity as well. So quality means having fewer bugs. Quality means having faster development cycles for each feature that you're implementing. But who's in charge of quality? So I would say that quality is not the responsibility of a single department. It's the responsibility of the whole company. So if we're going to talk about quality, we need to talk about the quality of the company as well. So let's start with that. So as I said, and I'm not sure if I did it, but I started working as a professional developer in 2010. And when I started, I was very young. I was in my early 20s. So I had like a couple of things that I really wanted the company to have. So this was my must-haves for the company. I wanted a ping pong table, because the ping pong tables are pretty cool. I wanted a football table, because football tables are pretty cool. And I didn't want to work in a suit, because we're like in software development, like there are no that single suit around here. Suits are not cool in our environment. And one I wanted to have, but it was okay if they didn't have it, was beer on tap. But that was my stretch goal, so it wasn't that bad. So eventually, with all of these requirements, I obviously joined the startup world, because that's the only workplace where this is allowed. And right now, I've been in the industry a bit longer. So I've been here like for 6, 7 years. And I've discovered that some companies give you that, and some other companies give you more perks. So some companies go to your house and clean your house a couple of times a week. Some other companies do your laundry and go and pick your laundry from your place. That's pretty ridiculous. I mean, like, I'm 30. I don't need for a company to go and pick my laundry. I can do it by myself, hopefully. And I read this quote the other day, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Great work environment don't need perks as bribes. Because if you are a great work environment, you're going to attract talent anyways. You don't need to like get their laundry done or stuff like that. What this amounts for, and this actually doesn't have any impact on the quality of the product that you're building at all. It just makes people stay longer at work, which means that you're going to spend more hours at work and less hours in your daily life, in your life, personal life. And a bad way to measure productivity is how many hours you work in something. A good way to measure productivity, I would say, is how much of something you did in an hour. So right now I'm 30. So what kind of things do I value in a company? So I value a company that promotes personal growth. I value a company that has space for me to learn. I value a company that has good work-life balance. And I'm a developer. I've been a developer for 7 years. I don't want to move into some other direction right now. So I want a company that doesn't have only one career path, that is becoming a manager. So how do I know what company should I go into and what company I shouldn't go into? So one way of approaching this issue is try to see where the company is putting their money. So is the company putting their money in all of these crazy perks? Or is the company putting the money in something else? So for example, in AsynC, we pay for people to go to conferences. So actually here, there's a coworker, I don't know where he is. They're here. So he's here because like the company paid for his ticket and for his plane and everything. And as you can see, the company also encourages people to speak at conferences, which is something that is really worthwhile. And also we try to give access to people for like books, courses, or any learning material that they might need. Also, a really good important thing is that as a developer, you need to be learning constantly. And if your company doesn't give you time to learn during the work hours, that means that you have to do it after work, which is fine. If you're learning something completely unrelated with work, that's fine. But sometimes, and that's really common, you need to learn something, some new technology. Or like, for example, like we started working in a React Native app a couple of months ago. And I didn't know anything about React Native or anything like that. So I took some time to learn about React Native during the work hours, and with like a course that I got from the company. So I want to work for a company that not only recognizes that we have to study constantly, but gives you time to do that. And all of these things actually have a direct impact on the quality of your life and the quality of the work that you're going to produce. So I will say to work in a company that values quality, that not only values the quality of the product that they're building, but that also values the quality of the people that are in the organization. Because that's going to have a direct impact in the quality of the project that you're working on. So let's talk a bit about projects. So who here works in a flat hierarchy? Can I have like a couple of thanks. I think flat hierarchy is a lie. I think it's not natural. So in general, when you think about flat hierarchy, like the idea is like everybody is the same, right? So you don't have managers, you don't have like people that is on top of each other, you don't have anything like that. But when you have a group of people, in general, leadership comes naturally. So you have people that are leaders because they have like more experience, or you have people that are leaders because they have more knowledge in some areas. So what happens in reality, in my experience at least, is when you have like a flat hierarchy completely, is that some people are actually the same as others, and some others are actually not quite the same. So this guy actually knows a bit more the CEO. So if he approaches the CEO, he probably has more influence to the CEO. And this other guy actually has more time in the company. So when he said something, like his voice is heard more than somebody else. And this, you realize about all of these little things, the more time you spend in the company. But nobody really knows who to ask something, or who else to ask for something else when they get into the company for the first time. So this is actually informal leadership. You still have the same amount of leadership that you had before, but this is completely informal. So nobody actually knows where to ask until you spend enough time in that environment to actually know all of these subtleties between the people inside. So what did we do with this? Because we actually had this problem. So we just made it explicit. So instead of like not having a leader or not having like managers or anything like that, we changed it and we made roles explicit. But what does a manager look like? Because we obviously don't want to work with like a completely vertical company that we know that doesn't work. So for us, a manager is less of a decision-making role. It's more about a safety role or a coordinator role. Like he facilitates communication between the team members, but he doesn't make any of the decisions. The decisions are still taken together by the whole team or the whole project people. And we just decided to not call them managers, so we call them keepers, just like make that change a bit more obvious. So we implemented a bit more structure, but we still have distributed responsibilities. So everybody that is involved in a project, it's still their responsibility to create quality in the project. You cannot say like, no, he asked me that. I knew that it was completely stupid to implement it, but I did it anyways because they asked me that. You come up with like the requirements all together, and you try to design everything all together. So I've been talking about quality for a while, but I haven't defined quality. So what is quality? So there's a really good definition that I like from Peopleware that starts with a good definition of requirements. So if you had a good definition of requirements, then you can say, if those requirements are met, then you have good quality in your project. But it all starts with a good definition of requirements. And what we've been doing lately is trying to build a product in really short iterations. So instead of like going for like 4 weeks or like 3 weeks, we try to do it in like 2 or 1 week. That way, it makes it way more transparent what you're doing, and you can actually check the quality of your code or the quality of the project that you're working on after each iteration. So you can like actually immediately after the end of one iteration know if you're making a mistake in the process or in something, and you can iterate again and change the process to implement something better. So on every iteration that we do, we strive for quality. And every time that you do something for like a big amount of time, like over and over again, you're going to get used to it. So like our pull request right now doesn't take like a week to review, because like people are used to just like really small pull requests. Because when you have like really a short amount of time to implement something, you have to do it in like really, really small steps. One of the things that we also had a lot of problems with was context switching. So we work in a company, as I said, that has different headquarters, has different offices around the world. And one of the offices in Vancouver, another office is in Chile. So we cannot spend a lot of time trying to tap somebody in the shoulder because like there's somebody probably that he's not going to be online at that moment. So instead of trying to focus on like having all the people at the same time in the same moment, we tried something else. So actually, when you're interrupted, and this is a study that I saw that's very interesting, it takes like around 23 minutes to go back into the task that you're working on. So that's 23 minutes just for a tap in the shoulder to like change the Spotify audio or something. It's a lot of time just to like disrupt somebody that's actually working focused on something. So what we're doing right now in the company is, even though we have offices and I work really closely with people in the same office, we still work like we're working remotely. And that's because we know that we have like a time difference with Vancouver in this case, that is 5 hours from Chile or something like that. But we also have time difference in our office, because we don't have we don't have like any required time to get to the office. So there's some people that are more morning persons, and some other people just like to work later. So some people get to the office at like 8:30 or 9, and some other people get there at 11 or something like that. So we already have 2 hours difference. So we cannot depend on being at the office at the same time. So instead of tapping somebody in the shoulder, we just use Slack, and we send them a message. And whenever they're available, then we can have a Hangouts call, or we can just like grab them and go to the conference room. So we rely a lot on async tools. That way you can be everywhere. You can work from everywhere. We have offices, but we also have remote people. And people that work remotely doesn't have any problem working with us, because like the whole company works as if they're working remotely. So we don't rely on other people being present at the moment. And we work with our teams as if they're not online, even when they are online. So for this, we use different tools. We use, for example, GitHub. Probably most of you guys already use it. We use tools like Slack, as I already said. We use another tool that's called SendHub that we built for ourselves on top of GitHub for project management. So we work with our teams completely asynchronously, and we try not to rely on email much. So let's talk a bit about teams. So I will say that teams are actually more important than projects, because we work with people, and that's something that we sometimes forget. But getting a group of people to get along is actually quite hard. It's not really easy. So if you think that you're going to like put really, really talented people, really skillful people together, and they're just going to work perfectly because each of them work perfectly in their separate areas, that's not true. And when you get a good amount of people, like a good team of people, to work together and to communicate well, then that's really, really important. And that's actually a hard thing to get. It's a hard thing to form a good group of talented people to work together. So we form projects around teams. We don't form teams around projects. What that means is that if we have like a new project, as I said, we have like a bunch of projects going on all over the time. But the projects, when we create a new project, we have like one team of like 5 or 10 people that actually gets to that project, but they already work together in another project. Instead of like having a project and seeing what we need in that project in particular, and like getting people from all over the place and getting them together, we do it the other way around. We start with the team, and then we assign the project. So how do we create good teams at ActionSend? So first, I just said it, we keep them teams fairly small, because communicating with people when you have like a 5 to 10 people team is way easier than you have 20 people team, where you have like a lot more difficulty communicating with them. And we focus a lot on sharing knowledge across the teams. So we have teams that are focused on the project, and they're moving like from project to project. And we also have teams that are discipline related. So for example, like an iOS team or like a front-end team. So for each of these teams, we actually have study groups. A study group is a 1 hour each week that we take to study a particular subject. So we discuss like anything related to iOS, for example, and then like an hour after that, the front-end team gets together and discuss anything related to front-end. And here we agree to standards that we're going to work on. We share what we worked the previous week. So we discuss like mostly everything. We also read books and stuff. But one of the good things about the study group that I've seen is that in here we set up on standards, as I just said. So for standards, for example, for pull requests and code reviews, at the start, a couple of years ago, we were doing a lot of code reviews that were like, this syntax is wrong. So there's like a trailing column that's missing or something like that. And that's actually not a good code review because there are tools for that. So we can use like something like SwiftLint to use that instead of doing it manually. And we set a bunch of rules through like danger systems. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's also a really good tool. Instead of like doing all of these things that shouldn't be done in code reviews, we do it like with tools, and we focus on what's not automated. So we focus on like the really important things. And by the way, this is not a good code review. This is a really bad code review because this is not saying anything. And I've seen a lot of people do this, and this is just completely worthless. So you're not helping anybody with this. Something like this is a bit better. I don't think this is like the best example in the world, but at least like here, like the way of saying something is different, and also you're providing an example on how to implement it better. So this is like a better way to approach code reviews and pull requests. We also have a template project repository. In this repository, everybody shares if they come up with like a new pattern or something like that. And to do that, we just like do a pull request. You create a README for each of the patterns that you implemented, and you explain why that pattern is good. What do you think that it's important in that pattern? And this is shared like, across all of the iOS team. And every time that you do a pull request with a new pattern or like improving a new pattern, you actually tag the whole team, and you wait for the whole team to actually read it so they can actually understand what's going on, and they can actually use it in the future. We also have a shared architecture. I would love to talk about architecture if anybody's interested, but this is pretty long, and this probably is worth a talk by itself, which actually there is a talk about, that we have that is from Steve, that's our lead iOS developer. And as I said, like the slides are online already, so you can just like, go there and read about that. But having the same architecture across all of our projects make it really easy to move from one project to another because you already know where all the things should be. And also, as I said, we have an iOS template repo. And we take advantage of the repo also by using XCODE templates. So each time that you implement a new template in the iOS template repo, you actually also can implement the same with an XCODE template. So it will be actually really easy to just use that pattern inside your code. And also, there's a lot to say about XCODE templates. And there's another talk by Camo that is around here. So if you're interested on how to do XCODE templates or how to start doing XCODE templates, or even like how to implement them, you can approach us later on, and Camo will probably help you with that. I have no idea how to do that. He's the expert, so approach him. This talk is in Spanish, unfortunately, but like as I said, Camo is here, so you're welcome to either learn Spanish or talk to Camo. And yeah, and finally, the developer. So before coming here, I actually got my wisdom teeth removed, like these two, like 3 weeks before coming here, which was not a good idea. But I got them removed, and my idea was actually, for some reason, I wanted to remove them, the 4 of them, before coming to UIKonf. I have no idea why. That's just dumb. But 3 weeks before the conference, I had 2 removed. And a week afterwards, I wanted to go to the dentist and like have the other 2 removed as we planned in the initially. And when I got there, I couldn't even open my mouth. And he was like, yeah, we're not doing that today. You're probably better off doing it later on in a couple of months and stuff. And I was like, but I really want to do it before going. He was like, no, can't do it. Not a good idea. So remember this guy? So actually, there's another option. And the other option will be to say no. So when he asks you to finish it by Friday, you just say, I can't do it. Like, there's not enough time. And I will even go further and to say that that's actually the professional option. The same way as my dentist told me, like, there's no way I can do this. That will cause you so much pain. It will create so much difficulties for you in the future. The same way you should say, no, this is not a good idea. But you need to explain why as well. You cannot just say, no, that's it, I'm not doing it, and close your laptop and go home. You have to explain. You have to explain why. You have to teach the manager, if he doesn't understand why this is important, to teach them, like, this is going to cause you a lot of trouble in the future. Don't do it right now. So if the scope of the feature that you want to implement is too big, just say no. And if there's not enough time to implement it, you have to say no as well. But yeah, we really, really need this done by Friday because like business realities and market share and stuff. Yeah, so if it's really, really, really important to do it by Friday, then you really, really, really need to say no. Because if it's that important to do it by Friday, it means that probably part of the company is relying on that. And if you're going to implement something really, really bad, then it's the company going to be affected. So if you say immediately, OK, I don't have time to do this, we can change the scope immediately and see like if the client wants to change the scope. Or we can just maybe add more people to the project. And since we're sharing like some stuff, probably, hopefully, it's not going to be too hard to get more people in the project. So you have to say it immediately so they know that he can act on it. So in summary, to move faster in the company, in the projects, in your teams, you need to increase your productivity. And to increase your productivity means increasing your quality. So focus on the quality first, and the productivity will come along. But unfortunately, there are no silver bullets for this. It has to be a company effort. It has to be implemented in the project as well. You have to try to achieve quality in your teams. And you have to act as a professional developer. Thank you.